Shalom Aleichem and welcome, Heilige Chevra online and Chevra in person. And I say each week, and I think I said exactly the same thing last week, and I want it to be known, Mi Emek Halev, I don't take this lightly that we can do this. And Chesed Hashem, somebody called me from Miami to thank me that they're watching the videos. And I'm constantly surprised. We've got the chevra that turn up here, and okay, but when you are putting material online, mamash Be'ezras Hashem, with humility and with Be'ezras Hashem grace, that whoever's listening can makabel what they need to makabel. And obviously it's not the same when you are listening to me through the computer, through whatever medium you're listening, and the chevra online, and it's just a deep hakaras hatov. And Chesed Hashem, it's an opportunity because, as we've mentioned before, when we're speaking about this chelek of Torah, there were three Messiahs given. There's a written law, there is an oral law, and there is not necessarily a law, but it was the metzius of how we work. It was a metzius of how we work. And if one pulls back and thinks about it, the Torah, the written law, Tanakh, and the oral law, most people speak about, and that's where people's lives are really holding. They're really working on the written law and the oral law, and obviously more on a certain respect, the oral law. And Baruch Hashem, a number of more people are learning Tanakh. Tanakh is very important. We try in our community, an expectation is to finish Be'ezras Hashem Tanakh and Mishnah once a year. And we have a whole system where you could learn Tanakh with Targum mitzvahs. So as you're going through Tanakh, you could see the Targum mitzvahs. And many of the mitzvahs, we know that we have the Chafetz Chaim who wrote out the mitzvahs that are applicable for today. So there's many mitzvahs, obviously, that are applicable for today. And then Mishnah, so Mishnah is very interesting. To learn Mishnah and to learn the Pesukim, that the Mishnah relates to the Masechta, where the Pesukim are underpinning the, obviously, main ideas of the Masechta. And then you learn with that the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch, where you then bring the Mishnah down halacha l'maisa. And this is something very important, to have the written law and the oral law. But then there's another side to our Avodah which has been neglected. Why it's been neglected is a whole conversation, but it's been neglected, and that's the work that we are doing. The work of what we call the architecture of the soul. The work of understanding how we work. The work of leading us back into what it is to be a Tselem Elokim. And there's a lot of conversations to be had. People typically ask, how comes we've got so much disconnect in our generation? So many people are disconnected from Torah. So many people are disconnected from each other. There's arguments. There's a lack of unity, a lack of achdus. Maybe I can suggest, my dear friends, Yeh lecha yom tov ma'od bracha mazel v'atzlach. Ani ohev otcha mi'emek halev. Baruch Hashem. So maybe I can suggest that it's not about the halacha we are learning. It's not about where we have come from. It's not about the words on pages. We've got the written law, we've got the oral law, and Baruch Hashem, it's strong to whatever extent it's strong. I would suggest maybe, think about this. The major issue that we face is the maturity level of how we are relating to ourselves, how we're relating to one another, how we're relating to the physical world around us, how we're relating to the divine. It's a level of maturity. It's the third Messiah of understanding how we work that is lacking. And if you think about it again, logically, I think it's reasonable to say that if we work on upgrading our Tselem Elokim, if we work on aligning the Neshama, Ruach, and Nefesh, the natural outgrowth is that we function better together. We feel better in ourselves, and because we feel better in ourselves, I can collaborate and contribute comfortably. But when I don't feel good in myself, whatever anybody does, famous words used today, people get triggered, and traumas, whatever one wants to label this, and healing, fad words today, and it's true. But the metzius is, number one, it shows where we are in our generation, that innately we chap this. Innately, we get this. This is something which is awakening within us because we're moving into our next stage of evolution as a species and for sure as a nation. So we need this element of recalibration, retethering to neshama, ruach, and nefesh. And in experience, that's where we are playing right now. That's where we're being curious. Right now, we're in a world where we're speaking about not just the metzius of words, of the nature of neshama, ruach, and nefesh cerebrally. What we are trying to do is actually experience the neshama, experience the ruach, experience the nefesh. And where we are right now is what we call das tachtoin. Das tachtoin, that's where we are in our journey. Chitzoni and pnimi. And that shift alone, my dear, beautiful friends, I believe could make a big difference. And I say I believe because I know in my subjective experience this is true. But if I speak to the chevra here in person, and I'm always interested to understand, I'm always interested to simplify this material, to make it easier and easier. Online, somebody's reading one of the Contrasim, and they're not listening to this, and they're just listening to the Contrasim. I imagine it's more abstract. But the metzius is that when you have time to read a text, like we're reading right now, and we have time to speak around the text, and we have time to ask questions, then after a certain amount of time listening to this information, you're relating to yourself and the world differently. And I've done this before, and I'm going to do it again now. Would you say this is true or not true? Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, okay. And I think if I ask anyone here, the answer will be the same. What we are sharing is not difficult. It's different. What we are sharing is specifically how to raise our, if I could say, again, odd words, vibrational frequency. Everything I'm saying has a meaning. There's a vibrational frequency, and to understand what vibration is and frequency, klal and prat, there's a lot of depth with what we are speaking in regards to how we function as a human being. And as we are sharing here, the wanting is simply, Baruch Hashem, I was zeicha to be by the Biala Rebbe, Shlita, yesterday. And as I was in the Rebbe's house, I was remembering the Rebbe's father, the Mevasa Tov, who was my teacher. Since I was a little kid, I get emotional just speaking about it. Because I was speaking to one of the chevra that we were with, and it's so important to have somebody who can see you and hear you and believe in you. And the Rebbe was that for me. The Rebbe was a voice of confidence in my life. And I'm not sure where I would be today if it wasn't having somebody who was decades older than me telling me, like, get on with it, you're okay. Like, shash, get on with it, stop fetching, get on with it. And he believed in what I can do. And to have somebody with that wisdom sharing with you that you are a Tzelem Elokim and you've got Koiches HaNefesh, this is how you work, now get on and live life. We live in a generation where, apart from needing to awaken ourselves in understanding the Tzelem Elokim, it's showing it in others. And we've spoken about in the Derech of Avodah, we have the beliefs and the 40 Kulim for the generations. The beliefs, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a beautiful world and wants us to live a beautiful life in His beautiful world. You are good and you have the koyach, as Chazal tell us, to create the life that you want. And that Hashem is good and Hashem wants to support you in the life that you want to be living. 3 beliefs. Rabbi Singer, who received this going back. And then the 40 kunim for our generation, as we've said before, we look out at the world. Every generation has its tikkun. And again, so many makoros to show this. And through observation and through teachings and through speaking to tzaddikim and talmidei chachamim, the first tikkun, physical and mental health. We look outside, physical and mental health. There's a critical situation that's going on. We hear about it day in and day out, how true it is and how we've come to it. But we have to up physical and mental health. In regards to 3 virtues that Arizal speaks about, Hod, Netzach, and Yesod, to consciously, deliberately practice gratitude. Through gratitude, you become more optimistic and hopeful, and through gratitude, and becoming more optimistic and hopeful, you become more resilient. We look out at the world. People don't have that resilience. But we have a way to create, build, and develop that resilience. Hod, netzach, and yisod, gratitude, hope, and optimism. And then the third tikkun is collaboration and contribution. Everybody has something to give. And it's incumbent on us to find our way in where we can be that giver. And we spoke about the Torahs from Rav Ashlag and others, and for Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Shapira and another tzaddik, Rabbi Yeshua Pinchasi, this is a life mission, that there's receiving to receive, which is the level of a child, receiving to receive, that I can't do anything. I need just for somebody to give to me. And in life, you do have that. In life, you do have that. Hopefully, not many times in your life. As a child, yes, but as you mature, you do need to be given, 100%, but it should be done in context. Then you've got the next shift, the giving to receive. So a child, if I go clear my room, will you give me a sweet? Or the parent will say, I'll give you money if you go do this. That's a low level of avodah, but still a very valid avodah. We need it. Ahava and yira in the Rambam. Rambam speaks about this, that a person can do a mitzvah for schar in olam haba. Okay, it's valid. Low level of avodah, but valid. Then the third is giving to give, where I give and I feel good that I've given. I feel good that I've given. This is something really important. As somebody once coined it, you get high on your own supply. I feel good, I feel full that I've given. This is something so important, and something which is very reasonable, and something that is there for you. Good morning, good morning. It's something that is there for you, giving to give. And then you've got receiving to give. And receiving to give is an avodah. It really is an avodah, and it's doable. And to remind ourselves, this parallels what the Tanya says, tzaddik v'rala, tzaddik v'tovlo, all the way up to, or all the way down, depending on how you're looking at it. But the inyanim of the 5 points of the tzaddikim were oscillating through these different mental, psycho-spiritual shifts every single day. And the more that we could be aware of it, the more that we can own it, and the more that we can measure, the better we live. The better we live. And I've said this again, and I'll keep on saying it. Again, if you come into this Beis HaMedrash, I'm not interested in bells and whistles. I'm not interested in these breakthroughs. What I'm interested in is boring. There's no bells and whistles. It's hearing the same thing. Really, really. And I say that because what happens, I find today, and I've spoken about this many times before, we live in a generation. I remember one of my Rosh Yeshivas in Gateshead would say, Rav Avram Gurewitz said once in a shir, what's the best word in Torah? The best word in Torah is like Tov. Tov. How would you rate Tov between 1 and 10? I don't know, a 3 or 4. And Tov Mahad is the Eight Sahara. So it's very interesting to live an ordinary life, to live an extraordinary, ordinary life. As my father would say, if you're not mentioned in the Torah, you did good, because who's mentioned in the Torah? Tzaddikim or Rashayim. And we live in a generation where everyone's so special and everyone's this. Nah, we're all the same. We're all the same, chevra. We're all the same, and everyone is just as special as each other, and everyone has their koiches and nefesh. And however dedicated we are to being Megala Elokus, that shine of Godlight is Megala in the world. Kapshutai. So when we are investigating these ideas fundamentally, it's to live just a normative, healthy life. I say this because it's interesting. In the world of Kiruv, and I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to do. It sounds negative, what I'm about to say, and I respect that. And please forgive me. But it's interesting. Sometimes when somebody is struggling, then they go on holiday, they get the free pizzas, and then they go on trips. What about the good chevra, the posh chevra? What are they getting? And it's just interesting. Who's the chizuk going to? Sometimes the chizuk should be going to the normal, healthy people, and it doesn't happen like that. I don't know what that means. It's just an observation. And it's the same. Sometimes if a person's going through depression and this and that and the other, of course, I'm not saying chas v'shalom, I'm not saying you don't support. You do support. But today we live in this world where it seems to be everyone, share your emotions, share your triggers, share your this, share your that. What about the people who are just poshet? who grew up with who grew up in the Haredi world and they're happy. I grew up in the yeshivish world. I loved it. And there's so many of my friends that grew up like that. And yet you hear there's so many people, in the world I grew up like this, in the world I grew up like that. And I'm not being naive. I speak to people day in, day out. So many people had good upbringings. Kapshutai. Yes, there are bumps in the road. Don't get me wrong. There's bumps in the road. Bumps in the road with the education system, bumps in the road with parents, bumps in the road with that, bumps in the road with this. But sometimes what we are doing is dramatizing. And it's hurting us. It's hurting us. And spiritually, the more you go up spiritually, the more simple things become. So you open up an Eitz Chaim, Hashem Yisbarach, the greatest. No, or HaPashut, simple light. Simple light? Hashem is not special, Hashem is, simple light. How would you describe HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Simple light. And there's a milah just to being Pashut. Just to being Pashut. And when we have all of these expectations and all of these assumptions, and sociologically it's given to us as well, unfortunately. When we're given this is the ego layering and layering and layering and layering and layering. And before we know it, we don't know who we are. So if somebody asks me, I'm just trying to be really simple. What does that mean? Again, by the derech of the Nistarim, the measuring stick. And try this with your friends. Try this with your friends. Maybe you can ask somebody, please don't say thank you to me when I do something for you. Notice how it feels. Notice we do this in the Avodah. People do things and they look at each other and just walk away. Because ultimately by the Nistarim, the Nistarim were a group of people, again, they were seen and heard by their close Chaverim. We mentioned this. By their close Chaverim, they were seen and heard. But they would go in to wherever they were going, they would do their avodah, no one would notice them, they looked like everybody else. They would go in, they would go out, and the more that they were not seen, and that change was made without being seen, without being heard, the better. Pelagic. It's so foreign to us today on a certain respect. That means they were very secure in themselves. They were very secure, they didn't have to defend themselves. They knew when to speak. Having the ability to come into a place, not to be seen and heard, not to be thanked, and leave. Wow. There's a milah to that. And this is where we're trying to go, to be healthy inside, to be centered inside, that I could be a vehicle of good, I could be a vehicle of service. And we've mentioned this before. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a world, and we've got the Ramchal and many other Sfarim that speak about this, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a giver and we are a receiver, and it's true to say we are to receive HaKadosh Baruch Hu's giving. But does that make us similar or opposite? Fundamentally, it makes us absolutely opposite. How do we become similar to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And people have this deep philosophical question, it's a paradox. How can it be that we are to be like Hashem, but we are as well receiving? Well, it's actually very simple and it's very humanistic. That Hashem is giving, I'm receiving, and I allow myself to receive, the art of receiving. But then I absorb what I've received, I open my eyes, ears, heart, and mind. And as Rabbi Nachman says in Lukutei Maran 5, that I look out at the world and I see what's missing, and I take that light, that chiyus that I've absorbed, and then I figure out, how can I be of service? And sometimes that being of service is as simple as having breakfast. It's called a chesed. Sometimes it's as simple as self-care. That's called a chesed. And sometimes it's as simple as a smile to one's wife or husband or children. It's a chesed. It's not a matter of going out, being big, grandeur. Sometimes it's the smallest little acts of chesed for yourself, for the environment that's around you, for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, Mashal, as we said, there's always 4 relationships you are relating to. You're relating to yourself, you're relating to others, you're relating to the world around you, and you are relating to the Baira Olam. This is in the Arbi Yisodus relationship, when maybe one day we'll go into it more in depth. And these are the most fundamental principles of relationship. So, how do I view this Beis HaMedrash? Is this Beis HaMedrash inanimate? So in a world out there, they call it inanimate. In the Torah world, there's no inanimate. In the Torah world, it may be doimem because it's silent. Inanimate objects are silent. And then you have your levels of life which become more noisier. Medaber is talking, noisy. But just because something is silent doesn't mean it's inanimate. So when I come into this space and I tidy up, any Beis HaMedrash, I tidy up, I take the broom and I sweep, and sometimes I could notice other people, one of our neighbors, his avodah, when no one's looking, he sweeps everything, or on Shabbos he sweeps everything quietly when everyone is talking. You're being nice to the Beis HaMedrash. The Beis HaMedrash is alive. Everything is alive. Melech chai v'kayam. Did you ever think about why it says chai v'kayam? Why these two lashonos? There's no such thing as death. There's only such thing as life. And the gradients of life revolve around how much that particular thing can animate. So a medaber has a lot more chiyus and can animate a lot more than a doimem. So what's the job of the medaber with the doimem? We're guardians. We are guardians of this space called the world. We're guardians. I give shiur in the yeshiva, and there's a nakuda I learned from my teachers, always to be in a situation where the sviva that you are learning in is clean. So I come in to give shiur, and first thing I do, I've given there 7, 8 times I've given shiur that I come in. First thing I do, I try. I don't always get to do this, but it's an absolute pleasure to do this. What do? Clean the tables, straighten the tables, put the chairs around the tables, and there's 2 sorts of chairs. I want more comfortable chairs. And then I go to the toilet and I pick up the toilet paper that's on the toilet floor, the floor, and then if there's any cups, okay. So I did this 3 or 4 times. And I came in the last 2 times, 5 times, 6 and 7, and it was done. And there was a particular individual, I got upset. It's like I walked in, everything's clean and tidy. Oh, the toilets must be dirty, let me run to the toilets. I ran to the toilets, they're clean as well. But what happened is that I didn't say anything. This Yid, who's in the Beis HaMedrash, his name's David, he saw what I was doing. And before I came, he ran around, asked him how long did it take him. He didn't tell me at first. How long did it take him? About 5 minutes. 5 minutes, 4 minutes. And the space before and after people walked in, it's like, oh, whoa. That's das tachton chitzoni. Not complex, chevra. Not complex at all. Das tachton chitzoni. And das tachton pnimi, the external affects your internal. The internal affects the external. What we're sharing here is not difficult, it's different. And I'm hoping as we go weiter and weiter, everything we share is just easy peasy. Like, there's no chidushim here. And it may sound counterintuitive, that's true. We've had these conversations over the year, it sounds counterintuitive. I get that, that's because we've been educated out of what it is to be a Tzelem Elokim. When we're educated into what it is to be a Tzelem Elokim, it's like, oh, okay, that's it. My response is like, oh, no, my response is like, oh, that's so obvious. And the more you get that, the more you're onto something. Really, it's not like, wow, what a chidush. It's like, oh, really? So obvious? Oh. It's like listening to a really good shiur. I've been listening to a lot of the shiurim of Rabbi Yochanan Zweig, Talmud of Rabbi Yaakov Weinberg from Baltimore, and Rav Ruderman. And it's interesting, like a good shiur is, I love hasagas, I love new hasagas, I love new insights. And I hear people and it's like, missing it. And I heard him, and he asks a really simple question and gives a really simple answer with obviously the lomdus and the bima'ayin, the makaris underneath. And when you finish, it's, wow, that was so obvious. I don't know how I didn't think of that. That's good. That's good. And this is something very important to think about. Chesed Hashem, we all are good and we all matter. And we should all feel good and we should all matter enough that we can work healthily together. And in the first 3 changes, or the first 3 tikkunim in the 4 tikkunim, that we should experience better mental and physical health. And when we become deliberate practitioners of gratitude, hope, and resilience, then it's far easier to collaborate and contribute, and collaborate. That's it. And until we've just gently pushed away, sometimes at times it can be more rigorous, the ego self. I'm relating to my thoughts and feelings and physical sensations, which is in my nefesh, which is the lens of how I'm looking at this world. When I can build that relationship, bracha v'atzlacha, when I can build that relationship, unbelievable shifts and changes are made. And they're there for us. They're there for us, and it's our inheritance. It's our inheritance. So again, just adding another understanding, we've got the Messiah of the written law, the Messiah of the oral law, and we've got the Messiah of the Tzelem Elokim. And at Har Sinai, we were recreated with this innate understanding of how we worked. That's why, as we said, the Medrash says that we were healed. We were perfectly healed. Mental, physical health ailments, all dissipated. All dissipated. I remember speaking to a Baal Tshuva who I learned this Medrash with in a Shiur, and he is a biologist, and he says, maybe it's true that we can grow back limbs. From Har Sinai, maybe it's a proof we could grow back limbs. It was very interesting. But everyone was healed. And were we healed because we became a Tzelem Elokim? Or were we healed as a matana to receive the Torah? It's a very good question. You hear the diuk? It's a subtle diuk. Because I became a Tzelem Elokim, I was healed, or I was healed in order to receive the Torah. But the nakuda, whatever the answer may be, there are answers, there are potential answers, but the point is, the healthier we are, the better off in life we are. Kapshutai. Obviously physically, psychologically, spiritually. And just in halacha l'maisa, in the morning after Shachris, we're going through the Chaya Adam, and we're going through the halachas of going to the bathroom. And it's just very, very interesting that if you really understand these halachas, you're meant to be able to experience your own body, to feel your own body. When you have basic needs, basic urges, you're meant to be able to experience that. On another side, Dain Lopian would always say, you're meant to be able to regulate yourself. When you go to the bathroom, how you go to the bathroom. And these things are possible, but for so many people, there's a disconnect. Could be the food they're eating. How many people I've worked with where when they started to change what they are eating, and when they start to drink more and move more, the regulation of going to the bathroom is far more accurate. And a person after a couple of months can say, in the morning, afternoon, or evening. That's Peladik. That's a halacha in the beginning of the Shulchan Aruch. And that's what we're speaking about here. Das Tachtoin. Das Tachtoin Chitzoni, Das Tachtoin Pnimi. And where we are right now is in the world of Das Tachtoin Pnimi. And we've spoken about the world of physical sensations, and we've spoken about the world of emotions, and now we're in the world of thoughts. And as we go forward with our really short Hagdama, such a short introduction, my friends, Be'ezras Hashem, together, Zusammen, together, just place our attention on Leilul Nishmas and Refuah Shleimas, Leilul Nishmas Yaakov Binyamin ben Rachamim, Leilul Nishmas Reisha Davera bas Yaakov HaKohen, Leilul Nishmas Chaya Sarah bas Yehuda Leiv, and Leilul Nishmas Malka bas Zev. Be'ezras Hashem, Yishid Avaliyas Neshama. And Refuah Shleima Reb Feivel ben Toba Fei, Baruch Hashem, he's going through his chemotherapy right now, and he should be strong, he shouldn't feel sick, he should have clarity. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. And as well, Refuah Shleima Mayan bas Devorah Hadassah, may she have a Refuah Shleima, Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. Be'ezras Hashem Yisbarach. As well, constant success for Akiva Michal and his family, who I'm in touch with, who I know you're listening to this. And Mi'emek Halev, I appreciate you so much. And as well, the wonderful Yavin family, who as well, I believe you'll be watching this, and as well, I wish you so much success. And Baruch Hashem, the Chassan and the Kala, Shetivne Bais Ne'eman V'Yisrael, Kaplan family, and our community that's here, our community online, offline, people who are makasha, people who are wanting to grow in a simple way. in a simple way, in a methodical way. We were in Or Sameach yesterday. We had, Baruch Hashem, the schus. I got to sit for a few minutes, or stand in the presence of Rabbi Yitzchak Breitowitz, and I was speaking to a Yid in the Beis HaMedrash, and it's just interesting how he was saying how he's been exploring Yiddishkeit, and he's learning with a particular individual who's created systems. Things fit and make sense. And it's true to say, in the exile, things are sporadic. And to have the ability to bring everything together in a mesudar way to the best of our ability is so important. To have the ability to do that. And that's what we're doing. We're building. We're building right now. We're building with the architecture of the soul. But for example, Tanakh, Mishnah, Bavli, Yerushalmi, the Torah fits. And we need to care for each other together. We're all fractals of a limb. And we've all got our job. Torah is the same. Torah fits. And it's one and the same. And the more that we could develop ourselves and build these systems and build the understanding of the interconnection, you feel good within yourself. You feel good within yourself. So, okay, Be'ezras Hashem. Yes, sir.
So just actually to take up what the Rav literally just mentioned, really the way to understand this overall message of this notion of that really we're the same, there's really, we should be focusing on the sameness of everybody. It's not to say that there isn't differentiation.
In Nefesh. In Nefesh, we're very different. In Nefesh, we have our kochot hanefesh. We have our strengths, we have our skills, we have our talents. And that is the levush. So in the next part of this kuntrus, we speak about identity and confidence. Confidence is nefesh, identity we could label as das. We'll get into that. Sorry, carry on with what you're saying.
So going into the idea that the Rav, I think, was then alluding to a few moments ago with the saying how we're all the same, I guess the higher we go, because the Rav was referring to how Hashem is referred to within the Svarim Kedoshim. So it would seem then the way to look at it, especially with the Rav now also mentioning Nefesh, is that on the one hand there is differentiation, and there is, so to speak, classes, this Shevet does this, this Shevet does that, people have leadership roles, whatever it may be, but the recognition is that ultimately, and we said this, I think it was like a month or two ago, this interconnectivity with the dots. Like that's really the way to look at it, because once you recognize everything has a connection, then really it's all interconnected together, as opposed to, focusing on, well, this person's all the way up there, this person's down there. No, there's really connection for everybody, and it would be silly to think just because you think it's further away this way that there isn't, a very direct connection. Is that kind of...
Yes, everybody, there's a horizontal and a vertical, right, and sometimes the hierarchy of the horizontal or the hierarchy of the vertical makes us look very different.
Right.
But really it's a horizontal where everyone has different roles. So the Kohen Gadol is the same as the Yisrael, but has a different role. So from a nefesh, and it happens to be, the soul set is slightly different. But nevertheless, talking from a pragmatic perspective, people have different roles, and we need these roles to be filled. And when a person figures out their own kochot hanefesh, my friends, it makes life a lot easier. When you become comfortable and you're secure in who and what you are, you can give from a much stronger perspective. But that's to do with the level of maturity and das.
And ultimately, this will also spread to all the Umas Olam.
100%.
As they continue to become Bali Das and connect.
100%. 100%. 100%. So Chesed Hashem. So there was a question that was asked. And I think it's a very, very important question. The question was asked, I'm a clinical psychologist, and I would like to know the interface between what we are studying here and the world of mental health. Is it a replacement? Is it the same? Is it different? So I think this is a very important nakuda, and we have spoken a little bit about it. And it's this nakuda of, first of all, recognizing the time period we are in. We live in a time period where there's systems, many modalities that have been created, and they're wonderful. If they're helping people, and they're wonderful. And there's many, many myriads of modalities, whether it's clinical psychology, whether it's talk therapy, whether it's IFS, whether it's 3 principles, whether it's NLP, whatever it may be, there's many, many modalities. And there's this balancing act of probably 3 or 4 different things. Number one, the therapist. When I studied therapy, and I was zeicher to study with really, really special people, a couple of the people that I studied with, one of them, she was a student of Jung, and she was zeicher to meet Freud and spend time with Freud, even though she wasn't so keen on Freud. She preferred Jung a lot more. She lived in London, and she would say that pretty much all the time, therapy is not necessarily based around the modality, it's based on the therapist. So you could take somebody, you could take an individual who has no training whatsoever, but they just have the knack of what we could label healing. They're just really good at healing. They can see, there's an intuition. And that's something that should never ever be lost all the way through history. Before there were modalities, before there was a curiosity in creating systems in how we work, there were individuals who were really good at helping other people. And that's number one, something to take into consideration. It's true to say from that, then there is observation, and through that, many modalities are created. And I would like to share something which is really important. I'm like a system junkie. I want to be able to click my fingers. I want to be like Hashem and like the Tzaddikim and click my fingers and fix everything. Unfortunately, I still haven't managed that. I tried to fight with Hashem, but right now Hashem keeps on winning. So even though I don't like it, I think I know better, but the Mitzvah says Hashem keeps on winning. So that means what I need to do is keep on studying and find all different ways to help people and benefit people's lives in a time perspective. Okay, but the Mitzvah is modalities are really good. And sometimes what you'll find is there'll be an individual who's got the knack for healing and they learn one modality and it's wonderful in how they work to upgrade people's lives. Sometimes a person could use 3 or 4 or 5 different modalities. It's a recognition of balance. You have the individual who is helping and being a shliach. You've got the modalities, and sometimes modalities could be used as tools, depends on the person. And as well, never to forget, people are different. So I hear often, everything is trauma-based healing, trauma embodied. Okay, for a certain group of people, that may be really good. And you can show me the statistics. You could show me EMDR. I'm trained, Baruch Hashem, in EMDR, and it's really powerful, really, really powerful. But I have worked with people that it hasn't worked. Now, is that your Shiur Gerzi? Maybe it's your Shiur Gerzi 100%. Could be the practitioner. It could be that they just didn't stim with the modality. And when I shifted to another modality, or when I let go of all modalities, which as well is really important, then sometimes that's when the healing or the change can occur. So on one hand, you've got the individual, you've got the modality and the person you're working with, and your intention of what you want. This is another nakuda which is so important, the intention of what you want. And what you need to do is really know the modalities very well, and that happens through practice. So much so, you don't think about the modality. So much so, you can work with your intuition and you could dance. When this happens, you bring this up. And sometimes you may not even recognize or remember yourself, and that's all okay. That's all okay. From a therapeutic perspective, that's how sometimes therapy works. And on top of that, it is important accountability. Accountability and the world of stage, the world of having accountability, especially in our modern day, this is something very important. This is something very, very, very important. There's many different forms of observation, many sorts of forms of achrayut, taking responsibility and accountability, and this is important. Mentorship is really important. That's about therapy. And then in context with what we are learning, it doesn't hurt, it only helps. It only helps. There's not one right answer. There is context, and there is responsibility, and there is your own ability to really be honest with yourself, honest and authentic. Do I find this helps a lot of people? Yes, but I don't necessarily work from a therapeutic perspective. This individual wrote, do I use this to help people? Yes, but I don't necessarily use this to help people who are challenged with things. But when I have used it to help people that are challenged with things, for sure it's made a shift in a lot of people. So vague, I apologize, it is vague because it's a more in-depth conversation. It's a more in-depth series of Derech Eretz Kadma LaTorah and understanding how modalities work. And for me to stand and say something for a couple of minutes is very disrespectful for those people who have spent 20, 30, 40 years in the clinical world. You know, you have to be very cautious and respectful and understanding and context-based. But I would say that what we are learning here is definitely a modality that can help and has helped, and to work with it in the way you see fit, in a healthy, authentic, mature way. Yes?
The Rav once said something that, if I'm remembering correctly, the Rav did attribute to Diana Ross, that at least in psychodynamic therapies and in other modalities as well, oftentimes the therapist is modeling the Das. He acts as the Das for the client.
Yes.
And it teaches the client a way of thinking about their own experiences,
yes,
where they begin to create their own Daat.
Yes.
They get the therapist's voice in their head, and
yes,
they start to make those shifts themselves.
100% true.
Models that relationship with Daat.
100%
so to me,
true.
that was a very big paradigm shift in terms of therapy and the way that therapies and different modalities work. It's that the therapist is often modeling this Daat voice for the client, and so I don't know what specific modalities the person who asked the question is using, but I wonder if that would be relevant.
Very relevant, thank you. Which is again a very, very important nakuda. I'm hoping the microphone, which is on this side as well, thank you to Mr. Bennett to set it up like this, it could be heard. So this nakuda of recognizing that in therapy, you've got the neshama, ruach, and nefesh, you've got the das is in ruach, and in therapy, there's a tremendous realization that if you look at the model of retethering to the different soul parts, that the therapist typically is the das to the nefesh of what the person is experiencing. And again, depending on where they are coming from, shifts can occur. So there's a lot to talk about this. And again, I think it's really important, pragmatic, respectful discourse. It's very easy to get lost. I hear people say, oh, therapy is this and only Torah modalities. There's so many forms of modalities. And there's modalities, which again, I find very odd, coming from I'm a physical therapist. And coming from what I did when I did physical therapy, I did a lot of research. I love research, as I think you know. And it's very fascinating because from a clinical perspective, there's so much that once upon a time that was not called in the fold as mainstream, and now it's in the fold as mainstream. And halach lamaisa, it's very bothersome for people. When someone speaks about, there was a book that was written, and again, I'm just going off a little bit just to show something using logic and rationale. And this is something really important from the halachic perspective. You have, for example, what's called mainstream medicine, and then you have like psychology, and then you have like what's called alternative medicine. And it's very interesting because we sometimes create these family groups, and we forget the basic of how something works. And I've spoken to a lot of Rabbonim who are paskening, and what I learned from my teachers, whether the Biala Rebbe, who was way ahead of his time, the Biala Rebbe I see was 30, 40 years ahead of his time, the things that he was looking into investigating and asked me to investigate, it's only now people are speaking about it, or Dain Lopian as well. And there's a halachic protocol. So say, for example, if you look at the baseline halachic protocol, there's questions to ask. Who gave us permission to heal? Who gave us permission to heal? Very basic halachic question. The second question is, okay, now that we've established we are allowed to heal, we have a pasuk, and we have a Gemara, and we have a halacha, what can you use to heal? Okay, fantastic. Now that we've established that, Hilchas Avodah Zarah, whatever it is, now the next question is, what falls into, especially in today's day and age, elements and modalities of healing? So today, on a certain respect, it seems to be there's this understanding that if baseline, again, much bigger sugya, much bigger sugya, please don't take this out of context. So if a person has research, scientific research, and can considerably show that research, and it's written up upon, so if there's a modality, or if there's, so then it could be used in from a therapeutic perspective according to halacha. Now, this is what's very interesting. Number one, who gave Rishus to give medicine? And in what context do we have Rishus to give medicine, any form of medicine? And is that medicine that's given in context to what's going on? If it's related to symptom or is it related to cause? Halacha l'maaseh, does that make a difference? And for example, if for example you're dealing with medicine and the person's not living a basic, normal, healthy life, halacha l'maaseh, does that make a difference? So if a person is not breathing properly, if a person's not drinking enough, not sleeping properly, not eating properly, not exercising, should you or should you not try to make a change in basic normative areas of derech eretz prior to giving medicine? So for example, there's a halach in Chesed Mishpat that if a person doesn't sleep properly, it's dangerous for one's life. And then you shift into psychology, all of these different modalities. There's a whether it's true or not, I don't know. I did hear once in the name of the Rav, someone once mentioned in the name of the Rav, and they were a person who was a Talmud of the Rav, that it could be a lot of psychology is a kfira. Maybe, efsha. Maybe it's because they forget there's a neshama. Who knows? But the point is, all I'm trying to say is there's a halachic breakdown. So then when you look at items that have been put into alternative medicine, you ask yourself, 1 minute, this is really odd because there's more scientific evidence on this particular element of what's called alternative medicine. I'll give you one example, massage therapy. There was a book that was written which were mutter and asa alternative medicines. And they threw in the book massage therapy. Now, anyone who has trained in massage therapy, I'm a physical therapist, there's somebody here who as well is a trained massage therapist. I mean, I just like with love and respect, there's so much scientific evidence to show the importance of massage therapy. Science, hardcore science. So why is it lumbered in alternative medicine? And when I went round to Gedolei Torah, I went round to Rav Elyashiv, when a number of books came out, and I went to Rav Elyashiv, I went to Rav Avadia, I went to Rav Shteiman, or I went to Rabbi Vot Ephraim, or I spoke to the Biala Rebbe, or I spoke to Dain Lopian. When you sat down and explained what was going on, and show them, mutter, this is mutter, that's mutter, it's very odd. And the historical understanding of where things come from. I'll give you one other example, Reiki. I remember I spoke to Rav Moshe Sternberger many, many years ago, and in a letter that went out, Reiki was osa, because Reiki is thousands of years old, and it comes from a Eastern Avodah Zarah. Well, that's actually very interesting, because Reiki, look it up. Don't rely on what I say, please. Look how old Reiki is, and look how Reiki became designed. And look as well at, in regards to the signs of Reiki, if you need to use them or not. So what happened is that whether it was based on the conversation I had, or other people as well who were practitioners of Reiki went to speak to Reb Moshe, Rav Sternberg in Shuvas V'Han Hogus, he said that it was mutter. So there's a historical fact of where something comes from. And what seems to happen is the lack of knowledge sometimes creates a situation where something is also where it actually is mutter. Not based on, so to speak, like something very simple. Not based on the metzias of questioning whether it's asa or mutter itself. It could be based on a historical incongruency. This is not 1,000 years old. It's not Tibetan. It's very odd, but it's important to think, it's important to research, and it's important to have das Torah. It's very, very important. We're not doing away, chalil v'chas, aselach harav, kedusha, tahara, shulchan aruch. Speak to people, and Baruch Hashem, there are very knowledgeable people out there. All I'm trying to share is in this question that was asked, and with what was shared here, there's no fight. There isn't a fight. There's a metzias of learning Musa and learning Avodah, Pnimius Dikas Forim, which speaks about the architecture of the soul and how we work. And it's not at odds necessarily with therapy. Things can complement each other. And as well, what's the agenda of therapy and what's the agenda of what we call Avodas Hashem? Maybe the agenda of therapy is unblocking blocks on a more acute level. So a person has point A and a person wants to get to point B, but there's something in the way that blocks them. So they go to therapy in order to create a cleansing, a cleaning of the pipelines so they can get to point A to point B comfortably. In Avodas Hashem, for sure you have that as well. However, it's about connection to what we call the neshama. It's das. So there's conversations to be had, and it's important to have those conversations with context, with respect, with deliberate thinking, with the understanding that Torah is functioning from a Shulchan Aruch. We have Gedolah Torah, and it's important to have those mature, healthy conversations. So without further ado, my friends, and again, I just want to iterate that I think these conversations and questions and answers are important. Sometimes they go off a little bit, but that's part of the hashgacha pratis of this. And then we come back. So with this, das tachton pnimi. We've done avodas to do with the body. We've done avodas to do with the emotions. We did one avodah to do with our thinking. And that avodah is a habata avodah, observation avodah. The source of this from Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Shapira, who learned this from the Piasetzna. It's part of the hashgata experience found in Derech HaMelech. And we'll move on to our second avodah for today, starting as an introduction with the first avodah. So spend a moment just by centering yourself. And just by doing a check-in, we've spoken for however long, 40 minutes. Just take a couple of breaths. And place your attention on following the inhale and following the exhale. Gewaltig. I had a voice inside my head, about time. And just notice what's going on in your body. Do a body scan from your feet all the way up to your head. And it could be quick. We don't have to spend long on this. It could be quick. Allow it to be quick. Invite yourself that it could be quick. And invite yourself in a moment to notice your emotions. See that breath that I just took? That's the body speaking to me. Ma ani margish. What feelings am I feeling right now in the present moment? Notice non-judgmentally. And my dear friends, let's shift to asking what I am thinking. Just noticing our thoughts. If there are any thoughts, you cannot do anything wrong. In this context, there's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong. There just is. Noticing imagery, noticing sounds. And if you want, you could imagine that you're sitting at the side of the bank and there's a river and each thought is a leaf on the river floating by. And you are the witness. Just as the clouds float by in the sky, and just as there are seasons, just as it rains and it's dry, so too you are just witnessing that. You can't change it. You can redirect, you can go inside if you are outside and it's raining. With the clouds, you can just watch the clouds. So too your thinking, feelings and physical sensations, you can watch, you can observe, you could be the witness. And if I could now invite you back, if you come back and open up your eyes, if your eyes were closed. Though, feels different? Feels different? Good, good, good. We have so much wisdom. You are so wise. You have so much wisdom within you. And we can even call the first part of today, on one level, healthy conversation, which adds to us. Yet, noise. Could be called noise. It could be called good noise. We're filtering our thinking and our feelings and our physical sensations. And then we do an exercise like this and it just resets us. And hopefully each time it's levels of maturity, it's levels of presence, levels of centering. And we can grow. We can grow. So exercise 2. Throughout the day, catch yourself thinking and gently label what kind of thought it is. Planning, remembering, judging, comparing, imagining, worrying, daydreaming. Let me just ask you, whose mind wandered a little bit? Would you call it, was it daydreaming?
Somewhat.
Yeah? Would you planning, remembering? No, daydreaming? Okay, for you? Comparing, judging, imagining, daydreaming?
Imagining and planning, and a little bits of judging.
Okay, and for you?
Analysis.
Analysis. So would you say judging and comparing?
Judging and comparison was a part of it, but it was very much searching for conflicting evidence and trying to make sense of the pattern. Search for conflicting evidence and make sense of the pattern again. It's like a rest of the shelf.
Amazing. So is anything wrong with that? No, no. The nakuda that we want to just recognize is that we function a certain way. We're not fighting against ourselves. What we're trying to do is to get to know ourselves, the architecture of the soul. And when we could label something, it gives us the ability just to ground ourselves. How much time do people spend criticizing themselves? How much time do people spend being cynical? So much, takes up so much energy. And what I notice for a lot of people and what I notice for myself, the hurt, the shame, the guilt. When I'm davening and I'm meant to be focusing and then I get this hirur, it's like, Rabbanu shel olam, I can't just what's wrong with me? Maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe you just weren't educated in what it is to be a tzelem Elokim. And if you look at the words on the page of the Sfarim, this all is taken for granted. Look in the Shulchan Aruch, where it speaks about tefillah. Look at the Rambam. We've got a whole text just full of makoros about becoming aware of your thinking. Rambams, Shulchan Aruchs. And this is something taken for granted. If we look, we've got a whole document on just the fact that you are the witness. And it's a re-education. It's a re-education. And part of the exile is that, on one hand, the Western society having secular education is profound. It's profound. It's amazing. Every layer of education, I'm enamored by it. I'm enamored by it. And the Torah world, it's unbelievable what we have. Like just the Sfarim, a Lakutei Ma'aran, a Rashash, a Sidur Mitok Midavash, the richness of what we have today. There's an overwhelm of opinions today, an overwhelm of options. But the fact is, it's amazing what we have today. Yet, sometimes without knowing, there's a pollution that occurs if we don't have good foundations. How much of classical psychology is based on the fact that we don't have a soul? And it's not spoken about because it's taken so much for granted. One thing that Mrs. Ross, this teacher I learned by, disagreed vehemently with Freud was the fact, and Jung held this position, we have a soul. And if we miss out the soul, you are destroying a massive chunk of human experience. Why? Why? It's a whole conversation. But just to note how we feel after we've, because it's TV, it's natural. It's natural. And the more I talk about it, the more I become aware of it, and the more I'm in a state of dask, should I? I'm more in a state. Do you find the more we speak about this, the more you are in that state where you can just hold judgment, or you could navigate what's going on in a better way?
Very much so.
That's it. That's it. Very simple. Very, very simple. Not always easy. It takes effort. But it's there for you. It's there for me. It's there for us. So let's read the rest of this. Once labeled, return to the present moment, perhaps by feeling your feet on the ground or the breath in your chest. Notice how labeling creates distance between you and the thought, turning, what does that word say?
Turning reactivity.
Oh, thank you. Very good. Somebody could read. Mr. Schulman, well done. He reads very nicely. So turning receptivity, huh?
Reactivity.
Turning reactivity. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Okay, not Schulman, Radell, for educating your daughter. So turning reactivity into awareness. Turning reactivity into awareness. This technique helps you recognize mental patterns without becoming entangled in them. So again, we're setting ourselves up for a little bit of an expectation. In context to that, reminding ourselves that we go with the flow. Now, the point here in this exercise to remember is embodiment. This is typically what we've spoken about, Yashar, Yediya, Shmiya, and Re'iyah. Yashar, we become embodied, the present moment experience. That's our starting place, Hishtavas, Das. So what's happening is that I'm now asking myself, and I'm recognizing, is this thought that comes up, planning, remembering, judging, comparing, imagining, worrying, daydreaming, is it Rotz V'Shov, analysis? Once labeled, label it. We're not saying not to label it, we're not saying not to ignore it. Become aware of it and give it a name. And then from there, we're asking ourselves, and this is a very important nakuda, the way we can come back to presence is becoming embodied. So you could feel the ground under your feet. You can taste. Feel your tongue against the palate of your mouth or your teeth. Smell. You can listen to the loudest sounds and the quietest sounds. Listening to the loudest and quietest sounds. And if you want, you could even look around. Become embodied. Just look around. Become embodied. And this process takes you out of your mind and you can enter the present moment. So there's no fighting. Please, please understand. There's no fighting. There's no, it's really rather simple. It's so silly. It's so silly that sometimes we don't get it. I need to fight. I need to have control. If you want, do what you want. But we're not saying that here. So again, let's play. Any questions on that? Make sense? So you are observing, you are labeling, planning, remembering, judging, comparing, imagining, worrying, daydreaming, and what other words come up, you label it. You could smile at it, and then you become embodied. Ground, feeling the ground under your feet. You can feel something, the table. You can feel texture, warmth, cold, feel something. You can taste, smell, listen, look around, and come back to the present. You can have your eyes opened or closed. There are times there's a difference. When you open up your eyes, you're flooded with information. But that's real life. That's how we live. So we want to be able to do this in real life. It's not like, oh, now let me walk around, I'm getting this or that. Okay. You want to be able to act normally. You want to be normal. Okay? So there is a reality check, maybe just starting to close your eyes until looking around. Then you can open up your eyes and look around. But ultimately, you want to be able to do all of this like this. And it's a practice, and it's just me sharing with you. Do it with your eyes open and play. Experiment. You want to be able to create das in a normative state. That's it. Doing whatever you're doing, hishtavus, getting back into a state of hishtavus. So let's play. Let's play with this. Keeping an eye on the time. Let's play with this. So, okay. If you come back and just center yourself, and you can ask the question, Ma ani choshev. Ma ani choshev. And if something comes up, it comes up. It's okay. If nothing comes up, enjoy. So if something comes up, label it. Is it planning, daydreaming, whatever it may be? It's a typical right now. I want something to happen. Again, an expectation. It's so quiet and dark and calm. Chesed Hashem. And if there has been something to labeled and you've labeled it, and if there hasn't been anything to label, that's okay as well. Let's practice just becoming present and embodied, feeling the ground under your feet. I'm feeling my feet in my shoes. I'm feeling my socks on my feet, all connecting to the ground. The ground is secure. Just feeling that. And if you want, feel. Put your hands on the table, feel the table. If you want, you can feel your own hands. Feel your own hands. For so many people, maybe a bit of an odd experience to deliberately feel your own hands. Texture, pressure, temperature. And now when you're ready, feel your tongue in your mouth. Feel the palate, feel the teeth, dryness, moisture, any tastes. Anything in between your teeth that's stuck there? Are your teeth jagged or smooth? When you've done that, take a breath in and smell. Can you smell anything? And now, wonderful friends, listen. Listen to the loudest sounds and listen to the quietest sounds. A hirhur just came up. Make sure that you're safe as you're doing this. Thank you, Nefesh. Listen to the loudest sounds and listen to the quietest sounds. And now shift. If your eyes are closed, keep them closed for a minute. What does it look like to see with your eyes closed? So I could see blotches of color right now with my eyes closed. My eyelids are closed. What am I seeing? Move your eyeballs around with your eyes closed. See what happens. What do you notice? And now when you're ready, open up your eyes and look around. Open up your eyes and look around. Look around at the space you are in. Look around at the colors, how things begin and end. Look how many things there are in the vicinity that you are in. So much. We're so rich. So many things created by Adam. Wow. Take a breath and gently come back. So again, this exercise, becoming aware of our Hirhurim, from becoming aware of our Hirhurim, labeling them in a general way, not fighting, just labeling them, and then the embodiment process. This technique helps you recognize patterns, mental patterns, without becoming entangled in them, hopefully. So let's hear, before we turn off the camera for today, let's hear where you are up to. And you don't have to share if you don't want to share. And the goal is just to see and hear you and to give you that opportunity if you have any questions. And then we will break into our groups and we will share. And again, the wanting, let's not forget our agenda right now is to upgrade your lives, to live better, to live more joyous, to live more quiet, to live with greater clarity, to live with Hashem, to live with yourself and one another and the world around you, all in harmony, in peace, in sync with each other, to the best of our ability. And we're not meant to do it by ourselves. So we could pray for each other. Pray for each other. Hashem Yisbarach, please give my friends online, please give my friends that are here right now, please give my friends that are not listening to this the ability to live from Daat, that they themselves should feel good. Please, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, please, please, please. We deserve it. We've been in exile for such a long time. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you know so well. Hurry up, do something about it. Let it come from you. Hopefully we'll try our best. But we can't do anything without you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I know that you're with us. I know that you're with me. I know that sometimes I ignore you because I forget I'm in Makon. Remember there's two worlds. I've got my world in my head and I've got the world of you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm in Makon and I forget that. How painful it is if I'm with a friend and they forget that I'm next to them and I ignore them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you're with me. Thank you for not giving up on us. Thank you for always being with us. The Gemara Megillah tells us, even the Shekhinah is in exile with us. As Rabbi Yitzchak Isaac Chava says in his parish of Malas HaTorah, and I try to do this at the beginning of every shir, to invite the Shekhinah with us in Ein Daled, to invite the Shekhinah, Shekhinah, you're with us. Be'ezras Hashem. And why? To be a Merkava, to receive your light, to absorb your light, and to reveal your light through my koiches hanefesh. Be'ezras Hashem. So a one-word check-in, sentence check-in, a question if you have one. Do you have anything?
Present.
Okay.
Satisfied.
Okay, you have any? Good. Okay. Be'ezras Hashem, you should have bracha, you should have mazel, you should have hatzlacha, and we should go from strength to strength. And l'chaim tovim u'l'shalom. And what did you hear today? What works for you? There's an objective and a subjective reality. What works to upgrade your life? You deserve it. You're good. L'chaim.